Hello, everyone. This is Wyatt Cash from Scoop News Group, and we're talking with Andrew Fairbanks, who leads IBM Services for Federal at IBM. We're excited to have you part of the program today at the IBM ThinkGov 2020 digital event experience, Andrew. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So first question, how has a multi-cloud approach to IT helped accelerate digital transformation in government from your perspective?
I think agencies are at varying stages of maturity in their migration to a hybrid multi-cloud. I think the most sophisticated agencies that we see in the federal government have actually moved multiple workloads. They've adopted Salesforce. They've adopted one or more infrastructure as a service or platform as a service providers. Many of them have moved to Office 365 for access to their digital laptops and machines. And many of them still run their most critical high transaction volume workloads on IBM mainframes. I think their main challenge now is how to orchestrate those workloads to optimize the efficiency and effectiveness of their organizations while maintaining a really strong security posture. And I think these moves to hybrid cloud as they've moved forward have enabled the clients to be able to significantly reduce the cost of IT spend, a much lower infrastructure footprint. It's also significantly improved their organizational agility so that as they have to surge to meet unexpected needs or to be able to modify their applications quickly to deal with new realities, they're able to do that in a much faster way. And I think as the COVID-19 pandemic hit, I think those agencies that had already migrated to this kind of multi-cloud environment found themselves much more able to adapt to the really urgent, critical needs in a much more timely and effective manner than agencies that had not.
Well, how have you seen automated workflow applications transform the delivery of digital services in government, again, from your perspective?
And I think this one has also really been an issue during the pandemic as well, because organizations have had to move to automate processes that had previously been very paper intensive and manual intensive to be able to execute their core government functions. I think historically, many of the government workflows have been very paper intensive. They've been driven by extensive manual labor, and they have complex business rules. And these are in areas such as benefits administration, grants, supply chains, tax. I think actually that was the first major government function to really be transformed by intelligent workflows was tax. I think we all understand now, just as we're going through this delayed filing season, the benefits to both citizens and the IRS when they really moved to online tax preparation. And the ability to actually do that on a software as a service, on your computer at your own home, have it do all the calculations within the tax preparation software, have that be submitted, have that then be go through all the automated fraud detection, have that go through all the automated payments, have that go through all the automated refunds. You don't really think about it when you're filing your taxes, but it's a really very sophisticated, intelligent workflow that lies behind that allows millions of Americans to file their taxes without ever having to produce a paper form or to have manual data entry process that transaction. That to me is sort of the example I always use when I sort of explain what an intelligent workflow can do. And when you think about some of the big issues that are facing our government today around VA benefits, around unemployment insurance, around the processing of the PPA loans for small businesses amidst the COVID crisis, all of these are really great examples of how intelligent workflows can be implemented to radically streamline the end-to-end process. And when we do that, it reduces the cost to the taxpayer for actually managing that process, but it also significantly reduces the backlog of those benefits applications and actually gets the money to people who really desperately need it in these times in a much faster way and in a way that actually is much less ripe for fraud and improper payments. So I think we're talking with agencies across the government around how they can incorporate those tools of intelligent workflows to radically streamline and simplify some of those core mission processes.
Well, turning next to security, what would you say are the top two priorities that you're hearing for protecting government data more securely at various agencies and across government?
Yeah. For me, there are two. I think one ties back to the first question, which is as agencies move towards a more hybrid multi-cloud environment, you have data flowing across multiple boundaries to actually implement the intelligent workflows that are needed for government. So you need to be able to access data that might sit on the mainframe. You might want to access that data to fuel an application that sits on Salesforce, and you may want to use that to actually produce forms that sit in Microsoft Office 365. As you're moving all of that data around, you want to make sure that you are preserving the data access and security and user security levels so that you have that constant security presence at every step of the way. And so many of our clients are sort of working on how do you develop those kinds of security protocols so that identity management and access to data rights are preserved at every hop. The second one, I think, actually has to do more with just the guts of the IT systems themselves in terms of the trust you have all the way down to the chip level. And so a lot of agencies are really focusing in on how do you create a trusted supply chain so that regardless of where a chip or a piece of firmware or any other component of a system is produced, you're really eliminating the risk of malware being inserted either by state or by non-state actors to minimize the risk of hacking, of data loss, of ransomware, et cetera. Those are the two areas that I sort of see as front of mind for most CISOs and IT leaders.
Well, and finally, what's one key IT lesson that you think government will take away as a result of the pandemic as they think about IT moving forward?
I think I'm going to cheat and give you two, if that's okay, Wyatt. I think the first is the need for IT agility. I think what we really found in talking with agencies like the IRS, like VA, like state unemployment organizations, was that they had a need, when you think about the stimulus payments, just as an example, to actually do a massive program in a very short period of time that needed to be accurate and that needed to be based on data that resided sort of in all of their source systems. And I think what agencies realized was they needed the agility to be able to surge, to create the infrastructure capacity they needed to run those workloads while also supporting all of the workers who are migrating from in-office to work from home, right? That the need to be able to create that infrastructure and to spin it up in a matter of days, not months, was one aspect of the agility. The second was the ability to develop and deploy new applications, again, in a matter of days, not weeks. And that requires a certain sophistication in terms of a DevSecOps tool chain and application architecture that allows you to quickly create multi-services, write them once, run them anywhere, to get those kinds of elements into production quickly. And the third is to be able to change business rules and to adjust applications where needed to reflect policy changes that were desperately needed by people under these circumstances. And I think many agencies found that they didn't have the kind of agile infrastructure. They hadn't migrated to cloud yet, so they couldn't quickly surge and burst into that new environment the way you can if you are in a cloud environment. They found that many of their applications were old monolithic applications in assembler and COBOL that were very hard to sort of change and modify to meet the urgent needs. So what we're really working with clients on is how can you change your application architecture to be more microservices based, to be more containerized, to be able to run in multiple clouds, and to be able to be modified quickly and easily without sort of having to open up the entire application and to deal with all the tight coupling that was in traditional applications. So in each of those dimensions, I think that need for organizational agility and for IT agility was probably the lesson that came out most strongly to me during the past several months. I think the second one is also the need for real-time operational data. You know, when we look at how states like New York and California and New Jersey were dealing with the crisis in the early weeks of COVID, where they were running out of beds and you had people in queues lining up, you know, 10, 12, 15 deep without any rooms in the hospital. Nobody in the government really had any tool for accessing where are the next best available hospital beds from a proximity standpoint. It was very hard to sort of optimize and run an integrated command and control in that kind of crisis management. And I don't think this is just unique to COVID. I mean, when there are hurricanes or earthquakes or other natural disasters, forest fires, you know, all of those are kinds of situations where I think government leaders have a need for integrated data flowing from multiple sources to be able to drive real-time decision making. And I think one of the frustrations that I heard from many government leaders was that they didn't have that information at hand to be able to make those kinds of decisions. So for me, the two biggest lessons are really around organizational and IT agility and around sort of the need for integrated data to be able to drive decisions.
I'm glad you took the opportunity to share both those lessons. Thank you. So Andrew Fairbanks, really appreciate your insights and taking time to share your thoughts today on the government moving forward. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, Wyatt. And just one last thing I would just like to add is just a huge thank you to all the government workers out there who I think for the past several months have really been working tirelessly both to fight the pandemic and to also implement much needed programs that our people desperately need. And I know many of our government people have put their lives and safety at personal risk in terms of serving that function for our people. And at ThinkGov this year, I just wanted to, that to me really is the most important message is a thank you to all the government workers who are out there working on behalf of all of us today.